Good evening. You're watching the news at 7:30 on ATV. I'm Bo Leung.
And I'm Raymond Yeung. Here are looks at tonight's top stories.
ATV seeks crowdfunding by selling shares to public, while 3 investors' bids are not enough for a deal.
Jury deliberates fate of 2 boat captains accused of manslaughter in Lama Ferry disaster.
Legco's Public Accounts Committee condemns Civil Aviation Department for violating spending rules. ATV is turning to the public to raise money through a crowdfunding proposal, offering to sell more than 10% of shares in the company at $10,000 each.
The move was announced as court-appointed managers confirmed that 3 new investors have offered to buy a majority stake, but a 16th majority investor Cheng wants a higher price. 3 potential investors from Hong Kong and the mainland have submitted bids to buy a 10.75% stake in ATV. The confirmation today came from one of the court-appointed managers, whose job is to find a white knight to save ATV from its financial crisis. But majority shareholder Wong Ban-kun is not selling those shares to the interested parties yet, because his relative and major investor Cheng wants a higher price. Derek Lai, the court-appointed manager from Deloitte, said Wong told him the bids are not at reasonable levels, but did not specify what his target price is.
I cannot say whether he is reasonable or he's not reasonable, because everyone has his own value.
Lai said negotiations are still ongoing, but he's confident a deal can be reached.
Honestly, if you are looking simply from the financial position, the company would not have a very big value. You can say that, right? But having said that, you can also say that the company is very clean. Do you know why? Because basically, the company has very little liabilities due to outside parties. The major creditor is Mr. Wong himself.
Lai said the 3 potential buyers, who have asked to remain anonymous for now, are looking to take majority control of ATV by buying an extra 40% of shares held by Wong Ban-kun. He acknowledged that time is running out, as ATV still needs to present its plans to the government in renewing its free-to-air license, which expires in November. The government has fined ATV $200,000 for failing to pay $10 million in license fees, warning it must settle the first installment next week, or the license may be suspended or revoked. Lai is confident that profits from the sale of farmland owned by ATV will cover the overdue payment. In another bid to raise much-needed funds, ATV Executive Director Ip Ka-po announced a crowdfunding proposal today. The station is now offering to sell Wong's 10.75% stake to members of the public for $10,000 each. The plan, pending court approval, is aimed at paying staff their overdue wages by Lunar New Year. A future white knight will buy back all these shares. But there are already concerns over whether individual shareholders will be liable for the company's debt, or how the money will be used. Commerce and Economic Development Secretary Greg So made it clear that any ownership change must have the government's approval.
I do not want to speculate on these initiatives, but obviously all these initiatives or proposal has to comply with the law, including the Broadcasting Authority and any applicable laws of Hong Kong.
A High Court jury is deliberating a verdict in the case against the captains of the 2 ferries that collided off Lama Island 3 years ago.
The 2 face dozens of manslaughter charges, and the judge has ordered the jury to rely on evidence instead of sympathy for the victims and their families. ATV's Mina Wong reports.
The 56-year-old captain of Hong Kong and Kowloon Ferry Sea Smooth, Lai Sai-ming, and 57-year-old coxswain of Hong Kong Electric's Lama 4, Chow Chi-wai, each face 39 counts of manslaughter and 2 counts of endangering the lives of others at sea. They were operating the 2 vessels that collided off Lama Island with a total of 188 passengers on board. The Lama 4 had been taking Hong Kong Electric staff and their families to watch the National Day fireworks in 2012. It was one of Hong Kong's worst sea disasters, leaving 39 people dead, 8 of them children. 92 people were injured. The two coxswains have pleaded not guilty to the charges, and both have pointed fingers at each other. This morning, as a 9-member jury retired to begin deliberation, High Court Judge Brian Keith instructed them to reach a majority verdict of 7-2 or 8-1. He reminded them to make a decision based on evidence and not out of sympathy for the loss of lives or plight of the victims' families. Winna Wong, ATV News.
Lawmakers have strongly condemned the Civil Aviation Department for blatant violations for spending public money on facilities without getting formal approval.
LegCo's Public Accounts Committee also criticised the department's general director for willfully neglecting his responsibilities and duties. The chairman of LegCo's Public Accounts Committee didn't mince words when he slammed two government departments following an investigation into an audit commission report. The Civil Aviation Department, the CAD, was criticised for not being forthcoming on plans for its new headquarters, while the Architectural Services Department was taken to task over its role as project manager.
The committee considered it inexcusable and condemns the Civil Aviation Department and the Architectural Services Department that in implementation of the new CAD headquarters, CAD had deliberately overridden the administration internal mechanism to regulate the use of public money.
The Civil Aviation Department had sought $2 billion to build its new headquarters at Chek in 2008. But according to the auditor, the department did not seek approval to construct an additional area on land reserved for future use. The department came under fire for spending $1.4 million on installing LCD monitors in rooms and venues already equipped with less sophisticated video display units. The department was also criticised for including toilet and shower facilities inside Director General Norman Lowe's office, as well as restrooms for accident investigators. Lawmakers condemned Lowe, saying he had willfully neglected his responsibilities and duties to provide complete and accurate information to LegCo for funding approval.
I've been a member of the PAC for only 2.5 years, and of course this is the most serious case of blatant violation of government's rules and regulation by a department head, by a director.
Lowe has been ordered to submit a report to the Transport Minister. The committee also hit out at the government for failing to provide long-term care services for the elderly. Acting on the auditor's report, lawmakers said the current number of residential care places for the elderly is insufficient and unacceptable. Between 2013 and last year, 5,700 senior citizens died while waiting for a place. With the waiting time now at 36 months, the committee urged the Labour and Welfare Bureau and the Hospital Authority to make better use of their resources. Severe flu has claimed 7 more lives in Hong Kong, taking the toll so far this year to 164. According to the latest figures from the Centre for Health Protection, 247 patients are currently in hospital under intensive care. The peak flu season is expected to last longer this year as Hong Kong waits for a new vaccine for protection against a mutated strain of the virus.
Taiwan's government has ordered all airlines to review safety procedures after nearly half of the pilots trained to fly the type of aircraft that crashed in Taipei last week were suspended. All 49 of TransAsia's ATR twin-engined aircraft pilots were told to undergo tests as part of a safety overhaul after the crash that killed more than 40 people. Authorities suspended 29 pilots who failed or did not take the test. Initial investigations into last Wednesday's disaster suggest the pilots may have accidentally cut the wrong engine.
China and the US are hoping to consolidate their relationship with a state visit to Washington by President Xi Jinping this September.
Apart from economic issues, the two leaders will discuss cybersecurity and Beijing's concerns about Taiwan and Tibet. It's official. President Xi Jinping will make his first state visit to the U.S. in September. The date was confirmed in a telephone conversation between Xi and his U.S. counterpart Barack Obama. The two have met before. After consolidating power, Xi traveled to California in June 2013 for an informal summit with Obama. Their last meeting was in November, when Obama visited Beijing for the APEC summit. As heads of the world's top two economies, trade and business matters will dominate their forthcoming talks in Washington. The military visions of both nations will also be on the table. But Obama is keen to focus on two issues: cybersecurity and Iran. The US and China have accused each other of hacking and cyber threats, and both want to resolve the thorny and sensitive issue. Washington also hopes Beijing will be able to persuade Iran to respond positively to Western concerns about its nuclear programs. For its part, Xi wants assurances on Tibet and Taiwan, no US support for Tibet's exiled Dalai Lama, and no US weapons for Taipei. An American team visiting Beijing has met Foreign Minister Wang Yi to build on their relationship.
I look forward to working together to build on the momentum from 2014, to deepen our practical cooperation, to manage our differences, and to deliver tangible results for people in China, the United States, and indeed around the world.
With the date for their next summit penciled in their diary, Xi and Obama will be making efforts to ensure that their countries benefit from growing bilateral ties. Washington has vowed to avenge the death of a U.S. female aid worker killed by the militant group Islamic State.
And a grand jury in New York has charged a police officer for the fatal shooting of an unarmed black man. ATV's Arthur Ochola reports.
This block of flats, said to be one of the most dangerous housing projects in New York City, is where a tragic shooting happened in November. Peter Yang, one of two police officers patrolling the area, shot and killed an unarmed black man in a dark stairwell. Police said it was an accident, but a grand jury has decided that Yang should face unspecified charges. Previous cases of grand juries failing to take action against white officers for killing blacks triggered nationwide riots in the U.S. U.S. President Barack Obama has vowed to go after the Islamic State militants who killed aid worker Kyla Mueller after kidnapping her in Syria 2 years ago. The extremists said the 26-year-old from Arizona was killed in an airstrike launched by Amman after Islamic State burned a captured Jordanian pilot to death. Washington has confirmed Mueller's death, but doubts that she died in an air raid.
News World Headquarters in New York. This is NBC Nightly News with Brian Williams.
Good evening, I'm Lester Holt in for Brian. We're glad you're here.
U.S. TV viewers turning in to the Nightly News with Brian Williams on NBC won't be seeing him for some time, if ever. The most watched TV presenter in America has been suspended without pay for 6 months after exaggerating a report about the first days of the Iraq War in 2003. Williams said the helicopter he was in was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade. But war veterans pointed out that the newsman wasn't in the aircraft that was attacked. Williams apologized and blamed what he called the fog of memory, but NBC said what he did was inexcusable. Arthur Ochola, ATV News.
Time now for sports with Cheng.
So redemption for Mario Balotelli.
Indeed, he's gone from sinner to saint. The forgotten man of Anfield came in from the cold to score the winner in Liverpool's Premiership clash with Tottenham Hotspur. Liverpool